the knobs but one, and all the hobs but one. And here's the results, quantitative data. This is what psychologists like. You can see that in the case where we covered up all but one, pretty well everybody was able to switch on and off the things all the time. So they did understand what we were asking them to do. The original, if we just look at the bottom line, which is a switching on, that's the switching off. It's much easier because, of course, you get strong visual affordance from which the orientation of the knobs. So switching on is the difficult bit. Original, 1 out of 4 is chance, exactly, if you just pick one at random. So yes, they can't do it. Verbal prompts, a bit better. Flashing lights, just a bit better than that. So it doesn't seem that this high novelty of this thing is a problem if you've got the right kind of thing. And I'll come back to that conclusion a bit later. I mean, obviously, lots of you need to do much more experimentation to actually show that novelty isn't a problem. But novelty per se isn't a problem for people with dementia. I mean, another reason for thinking that is that people commonly use touch screens with people with dementia, and they don't have any difficulty at all. Although they may never have seen a touch screen before, there's something just fundamentally straightforward about touching something, if that's what you want. Okay, that's the end of the diversion. Back to the model. So I was going to tell you something about the different sensors and what they can do for you. Most of it's about reassurance, safety, and, if absolutely necessary, providing some sort of response. So as well as the trigger, people can have a fall detector. This is something you clip on your belt. Detects if you've fallen over. There are a large range of environmental hazard detectors, smoke, carbon monoxide, and flood. It's an important one, and so on. One of my favourites is the bed occupancy sensor. It sounds a little sinister, but it's actually quite useful. What you do is you set this so that if you get up in the middle of the night, you tell it what you mean by middle of the night, it will light your way to the bathroom. A lot of falls happen in the middle of the night when somebody gets up to go to the toilet. So it lights your way so that it's truly preventative. If you don't get back within a certain time, which you can also set as a reasonable time to get back, then it can raise an alarm with the call centre and so on. It's quite a nice one. And the other thing that they've done is security. This is called a bogus caller button. It looks like one of these, only you've screwed it to the wall. And when you press it, the call centre realises that you're nervous about somebody on the other side of the door. And the latest version of this has a microphone in it, and it has a microphone outside the door. So you don't actually have to open the door to this person you're not sure about. Distraction burglaries are a big problem, especially in certain areas of London where this was developed. And so the call centre operator can say, "Oh, you've pressed your bogus call button. Are you worried about somebody?" "Yes, I don't like the look of him out there." "Well, have you asked for any ID?" He says, "Would you like me to ring the gas board to see if they are in this area? Would you like me to record the conversation that you're having?" And you can have this three-way conversation between the person at the door, the worried older person, and the call centre, which is, I think, rather nice idea. So there are all sorts of things we can do to enhance security with these telecare systems, as well as the standard kind of reassurance if you're poorly or you fall. A lot of interest at the moment in monitoring and treating long-term conditions. The NHS has a thing they call the expert patient. The expert patient means that you're expected to monitor your long-term condition, diabetes, COPD, heart failure, all those sorts of things, and adjust your treatment yourself. But every so often, somebody has to take some measurements and do some check on your monitoring. And you can think of this as automated remote diagnosis, or if you've just reflect it straight back to the client, it's self-treatment and condition monitoring. And what we've got here is a lady taking her blood pressure for her Intel computing system. Okay, so the computer's asked her to give it her blood pressure. And then a community matron or something somewhere, or some primary care person will get a warning if it's outside of some set limits. So there's the list of services for the client. I think this is a useful list because it makes you think a bit. First of all, it says these are things that people want. These are things that people are paying for, whether it's paying for it themselves or somebody somewhere is paying for it for them. So these are real needs. And the other thing that it's useful is that you can look at these and you can start thinking of other ways of doing it. Okay, they've found a way of doing it, but you can start to think and see, well, this is successful. This is a nice little business model. This is a nice little bit of technology. But most of this technology is very, very crude. Maybe we can find better ways of doing it. Or maybe you don't need any technology at all. Maybe you can do this entirely by just rethinking the way services are organized. But you need a list like that rather than the very technology-focused stuff that you get from the manufacturers. Okay, so what should technology not do for you? This is the results of an ethnography by a colleague of mine, Mark Blythe. And he went and talked to a number of people that pick up the pieces when things go wrong. So he spent quite a lot of time talking to ambulance crews, and they told him some horrible stories, which I will not repeat to you, of things that happen to older people. Age-concerned staff, great source of horror stories. Occupational therapists, mobile wardens, the people that go around and do the response service for community alarms, and of course older people themselves. I'm not going to go into any detail of how he did the ethnography or very much detail of the quotes and so on in what he got, but I'm just going to give you kind of the bottom line. So, and there are three basic things that we would recommend that you don't do with technology that we've learnt from looking at these services. So the first thing is it shouldn't stigmatize people. I've been wearing this around my neck now for about half an hour, and I'm ready to take it off, I think. There's something a bit sort of clinical about it, isn't there? So one of the OTs said to Mark, we don't want our homes looking like a clinic or a hospital. Too much of this equipment looks very clinical. Even the care phones look very clinical. And actually, people don't wear these things. My colleague Kevin Doughty phoned 200 people at random times through the day and said, where is your pendant? Okay, there's only one correct answer to that answer, round your neck. Even if you're in the shower, it's a bit hard to answer the phone if you're in the shower. But you're supposed to wear it all the time. And only 21% said it's round my neck. All the others have said things, I think it's in the fruit bowl, or it's by my bed, and so on. And why don't people wear it? Well, it's because it's stigmatizing. It says something to you. Everything we bring into our homes says something about us. That's why we agonize when we're going around IKEA as whether we should buy this or whether we should buy that. Because these things say something about us. And if I was an old person, I put this on in the morning, standing in front of the mirror, what's it saying to me? It's saying, you are frail, you are old, you're going to drop dead at any moment, I think I'll leave it in the fruit bowl. Similarly, if I open the door to a neighbour, what's it saying to that neighbour? And that's a real problem. The next one is it should not reduce freedom to choose between evils. So care professionals say, you give them these wonderful things and they just don't do it. It's called non-compliance. They don't do what they're told. But actually, older people are making, with this equipment, are making much more subtle judgments than that, I believe, and that's what we understood from talking to these people. If you think about the pendant example, basically, there are two risks. Okay, so I'm wearing this thing because if I fall over and I wasn't wearing it, then it might be a long time before somebody discovered me. It might be a very, very unpleasant, severe consequences. But a risk is a consequence is weighted by the likelihood of it happening. And you might believe, and you're probably correct, that falling actually doesn't happen very often. So you might say, well, it would be awful if I wasn't wearing it and I fell, but I don't think it's very likely. I know that if I'm wearing this, I look old and frail. Now, that may not be such a serious consequence, but the probability is 1. You know, I know it's going to upset me. I know it's going to make people look at me funnily that I know. So you might balance up those two risks and say, no, I'm not going to wear it today. Here's another example of people balancing risks. This was a mobile warden, so somebody who attached to a community alarm service went round with Mark went round with her rather, and so we're talking to a lady with severe arthritis who lived on in a first floor, or was it second floor flat, and to get to her flat she had to walk up these very steep concrete stairs, but she didn't want to move. So the mobile warden says, well, it's her home, it's got a nice view. If anybody wanted to break in, they need a big ladder. So basically, I can't shift her. But on the other hand, she was talking about, well, if you fall on those stairs, it'll be your last fall. So what that person is balancing up is the risk of falling, going up and down the stairs, not moving, because what the warden wanted to do was to move to a ground floor flat, against the risk of burglars, and the perceived risk and the perceived consequences meant they say, well, I think I'd rather avoid the burglars than the small risk of falling down the stairs. And so they're making those sort of decisions all the time. And if you make technology in such a way that people haven't got the choice of balancing risks, it's not going to work. They'll find ways around it. They're very cunning. And anyway, it's a basic right that we've all got to refuse treatments. As the manager of the Warden Call Service said, often families are keener and often health professionals are keener. Just because they think people need our equipment, they have to understand that we can't make anybody have our equipment. That's infringing that person's rights. And then the third thing has to do with this activity monitoring or lifestyle reassurance. And that's about informed consent, I think. So some of our members are using activity monitoring in intermediate care. So you have an accident, you're coming out of hospital, you're being assessed for what your care package could do. And one way of doing that is to put one of these systems in and see, well, can they get up? Do they get up in the night and go to the bathroom? Are they able to do this? We can remotely spy on them with this thing, and we can see what sort of care package they want. And very often that has good results, but sometimes it will mean they'll get less care than before they put it in. It's a kind of objective measure of what people are doing. And I think that's just a little bit difficult, because do people really know when you say, well, we'd just like to put in the lifestyle reassurance system? Just checking is one that people are using a lot. It's a website, anybody can put it in. And do they know the kind of data going out and what you can infer from it or not? If I said to you, well, you've got a bit frail now, we'd like to put one of these surveillance cameras in every room. They're very unobtrusive. It's just a little white thing. It looks a bit like a light. We'll put one in every room in your house. And then we can make sure that you haven't fallen over and everything's okay. I don't think you'd go anywhere near it. But you might fall for somebody who said, well, yeah,